long news bit.
The newscast and learn more about
it's almost
the
3
news
full minutes.
Can't hear you.
/news.
Good afternoon and welcome to Cinema Smackdown. I'm Michael Brody and this is my co-host, Shane Simmons.
Hey!
Wow, that's almost...
I made it today.
That's almost shock jock levels.
Too high energy? I'll try and bring it down to my usual level of sad, lonely depression.
I like you amped up. From now on, I want you to do cocaine.
I will do another speedball just before the show, yes.
That sounds awesome to me. So it is...
What are we talking about today?
It is May 26th, 2019. And what can I say about today? We're going to talk about my favorite kind of movies today. My favorite kind of movies being television shows.
Yeah,
Because at this point, TV is better than film.
Often so, yes.
Yeah, it's been that way for a few years. And
look how Game of Thrones that last season just kicked the ass of Lord of the Rings.
Well, yeah.
Everyone is so pleased now.
I was literally going to bring that up as one of those... Whenever you bring up how TV seems to be better than film lately, people bring up Game of Thrones. Well, that's over. The days of that being a go-to example.
I will defend it and say it successfully crawled across the finish line.
Yes, that by doing...
The show certainly did end.
It crossed every T and dotted every I, as though you were looking at an incomplete children's work manual for how to finish drawing letters. Like, see this line, children? If you want to make it a T, what do you need? And they would literally have the other line under it for you to just push into place. There we go, there's that T. There's where Daenerys ends up. And it was just like, yeah, like, you mean like we knew 30 episodes ago the exact
yeah, well, we know where these characters are going to end up. It's just a matter of filling that blank material in between. And it's the in-betweening that really, if anything, working in animation has taught me, it's the in-betweening that counts.
I do want to get to good TV, but I'm just going to mention one last thing about it. There's that moment with Jon Snow. I guess it's sort of a spoiler to say there's anything with him at all in the episode, but there's a moment with Jon Snow where
Wait, didn't he die seasons ago?
Where he's walking towards his, let's say, fate, and the look on his face is just gotta be the look on every actor's face when they read these final scripts of just, I don't get it, how did I end up here, why does any of this matter?
I don't know, when I see some of Kit Harington's performances, I think, what mental space is he in right now? Oh right, he's thinking about what's in today's catering.
Yeah, he's not, A, he's not an actor I fell in love with, and B, his character arc is...
There's a lot of actors on that show that, well, you know, they really threw the dice with a lot of them starting out. A lot of them, you know, a lot of the really great ones got killed off over the run. Definitely. And then there were others that's like, yeah, you're going to be around for the entire run of the show. And, oh, some of the ones who made it all the way were not the best.
Let's get away from Game of Thrones, as everyone everywhere is pretty much screaming and yelling about that show right now.
Well, because of last week's episode, we still have Hitman on the brain.
Exactly.
Because we're talking about John Wick and John Woo just last week.
Yeah. And finally, I have only been begging you for about 18 months to watch a TV show called Barry.
Well, I had to wait for the second season and then I plowed through it very quickly.
You and I have a very interesting relationship wherein I watch everything the moment it comes out, and you painstakingly wait until something has already left the public consciousness before even engaging with it.
That is my long history on how I listen to music. I always waited until the band broke up and then said, oh, now I think it's worth listening to them, now that there's no chance I will ever see them perform live.
Or have any hope that there will be new music from them.
Yeah.
So you're a huge Joy Division fan. Is that what you're saying? You just wait until there's no possibility that the lead creative could ever contribute again. Although, unlike, I guess if you become a fan of someone like Prince now, there's always that hope that one day they will open the vault and give us access to the, I want to say, 80,000 songs he produced that weren't put out into the world yet.
There is also the slight chance that he is an undead vampire.
I liked what one person said about Prince. I couldn't tell you who it was, probably a comedian, and he said, Prince can't die, he's imaginary. I thought that was the perfect thing to say about him.
Well, many of his aliases surely are.
I actually love that narrative.
He could be living under any one of those identities right now.
That's a good point. But I love his story. It's a wonderful story. His whole arc of being a creative and getting screwed over and just taking back his identity his own way. It's a pretty wonderful story. I kind of wish more people who were under contract could do the same thing.
I will wait for the movie version. Much like the Freddie Mercury movie.
Let's say the one starring, say, I don't know, Jamie Foxx. Oh no, it'll be Kevin Hart now, won't it?
Yeah, probably.
They'll wind up getting Kevin Hart to play Prince. That'll make sense.
Yeah.
He's the right height.
They really missed their Chris Tucker window of opportunity.
You mean because he's too old?
Yeah, he's getting a little
he's about
up there.
Right.
But
I would like that movie. I would watch the Chris Tucker.
I would buy him more in the Fifth Element era of his career as Prince.
Where he was
practically playing Prince, yes.
All right, so let's get to our actual topic of the day. You and I have a long-standing relationship wherein I recommend things to you and you don't watch them, and you don't watch them, and then a year and a half later you watch them, and then when I've already forgotten all the things I wanted to talk about, you say, oh, I've finally seen that thing, and then I have this vague recollection that it moved me for some reason. Well, not so in this case. You finally got around to watching Barry. You binged the entire series.
Yeah, bingey. Yeah, I mean, it's only they're half-hour episodes, and there's only 8 per season, so it's not.
So you've seen,
it's sort of like 2 lengthy movies.
Yeah, you've seen 8 hours of Barry.
Yeah,
and I'd go with 4 movies. Let's call that 4 films.
Yeah. Well, depending on country of origin, there's
it's reasonable. I mean,
like each season, they sort of have that feel of an arc that. Oh yeah, that's like a really long movie, but
You could almost go so far as to say 6 movies if they were 90-minute films. But Barry does sort of have that drawn-out, slow burn thing happening.
Yeah, I did pace myself a little bit, unlike when I was catching up on Game of Thrones and I did an entire season a day until I was current with it. Barry, I would watch maybe 2 episodes a day because I was enjoying it so much. I sort of wanted to savor it.
I completely understand. I watched it from day 1. And I will say it took me a couple of episodes to fall in love with it because the first show is asking a lot of you. So the premise being a hardened hitman.
And depressed and directionless hitman.
A man who is pretty much at the end of his rope emotionally is given an assignment that walks him into a Hollywood acting class. And he is somehow, in a very demented series of events, inspired to take the class. And it rejuvenates his desire, basically, to live. But he can't get away from the hitman aspect of his life, so the whole series is him balancing these 2 things. Which sounds like a terrible, terrible premise. When I've tried to pitch this show to people, I say, but it's good. but it's good. I know that sounds hacky, but it's really good. And
well, the quick try and hook people by telling them it's a flavor you like. It's like if Dexter and Breaking Bad had a funny baby.
Yeah, they had a baby, but weirdly it's funny. And that's the one. It's a huge selling point when you're watching the show, but when I'm pitching it to somebody, I say, here's the thing, it's silly. And a lot of my friends just tune out immediately. They're like, well, I don't want to watch anything silly. It's like, yeah, but...
It's silly harsh, though.
Yes, it's black comedy,
And, it has the premise that you could have conceivably done this as a 3-camera sitcom.
Oh, wow. I've never even considered
with,
that idea.
With the whole acting class aspect of it in particular, because a lot of it takes place in that theater. But, it's a 1-camera shoot, and, there's a lot of location shooting. And horrible, horrible things routinely happen.
I could very easily, now that you've just said that out loud, I could very easily imagine almost the exact cast of The Big Bang Theory playing all the parts on this show. The guy who plays Sheldon could be Barry. That would be fine. The woman who plays Penny on Big Bang Theory could easily play Sally. It would be, as she was an inspiring... Wow, I'm starting to see parallels on this
And Bernadette could be that feral child.
So, she is by far the greatest actress on
if you've seen the show. I mean, we don't want to give too many spoilers because we are recommending this, and by all means, seek it out and watch it. But amazing stuff happens. Yeah. And there is one particular character midpoint in Season 2 that will certainly burn itself into your memory.
Let's build up to the cultural relevance of that episode's the week it aired.
Right.
It's
yes.
fascinating what happened there because
That's what sold me on the show more than anything was you relating.
my review.
Yeah, well, yeah, your review and
Well,
did
my
someone?
non-spoilery review.
Yeah, but someone else commented as well. You were relating
The
a
Onion.
comment. Yeah, okay.
The
It was the
Onion
Onion. Oh, okay.
Literally wrote my I didn't submit to them. I just mean they literally wrote word for word what I was telling people as a review, as a headline. I'll just say it now. So for a mid-season episode of Barry, season 2, episode 5.
This was right after the opening of Avengers Endgame.
It was the same weekend that Avengers Endgame opened, and Game of Thrones was playing the most long-awaited episode of the series.
Yeah, the Battle of Winterfell.
With the Night King.
Yeah, exactly.
So people were insanely looking forward to watching the ultimate Marvel fight scene and the ultimate Game of Thrones fight scene. But just before or just after Game of Thrones aired on the same network, they played this episode of Barry. And with those two incredibly anticipated fights, it turned out to be Barry that by far had the most compelling fight of the year.
Yeah, yeah.
And that fight is in a standalone,
that episode
real-time,
steps away from the rest of the show, really.
to just show Barry dealing with something that is so compelling, so engaging. And I remember seeing that Marvel movie and thinking, I like parts of this. I certainly like part of that fight. There's a Captain America moment that's very, very moving. Whereas I watched that Game of Thrones episode and couldn't have been less interested. I was completely taken out of that by every action every character had in it, one by one, right to the incredibly disappointing climax. But then I shift over to Barry, where I expect nothing, don't figure there's ever going to be a fight scene in this show.
Yeah, there's hits, but there hadn't been an all-out action scene. And this was an all-out action episode.
I have been tempted since that episode aired to just, without any context, just show it to all my friends. Just show them that half hour, because it's just a guy doing something. And the crazy things that happen based on it. And it's just so satisfying. And upsetting, of course. It is an incredibly upsetting piece. Alright, well, speaking of upsetting, it's time for us to do a quick ad break.
Oh no!
So we'll be right back. I guess we're not going to really have much trouble talking about Barry for an hour. We've barely scratched
Barry
the
and
surface.
related topics.
Yeah.
We'll bounce around.
Yeah. It's just funny to me. Well, my friend Gary is in town, and I wanted to have him come on the show just because we have guests.
Right. Well, we've had Gary before.
Yes. But I told him, look, are you interested in being on the show? And he was like, oh, sure. And I said, well, here's what we're talking about. And he's like, I haven't seen Barry. I said, well, our other topic is we're thinking about doing another movie night episode of Shane's show. I feel like that just... All right, here it
Oh,
goes.
we're still going.
Keeps-
Okay.
It keeps freezing.
Mm.
It's not good. Anyway, 20 seconds.
Sure.
And then I said, he's like, well, I could just come on and, like, talk in the back. And I'm like, that's not going to work if we're doing a movie night episode. Definitely not for a Barry one, if you haven't seen the show.
Well, I mean, we could have bumped things to accommodate him, but...
But it didn't work. He didn't want to bring his own ideas this time, and I was like, I don't have time to coach you. We would have had to talk something out.
Jesus Christ, what the hell is that thumping?
And we're back on CHLO 1690. Our show is called Cinema Smackdown. And today we're talking about, well, something a lot of people are talking about, movies that are better than television that is better than film. In particular, a show called Barry, starring Bill Hader and Stephen Root.
Well, particularly Hollywood television is better than film.
Yeah, sure.
Hollywood film these days.
Well, here's the thing. So the TV show Barry was developed by Bill Hader with a guy named Alex Berg. Alex Berg has created a lot of interesting stuff. He's worked on a lot of... That was my buzzer. He has worked on a lot of different things. I think he worked on Seinfeld, but I'm not looking at his credits as we speak. But the thing that he worked on that I find the most interesting, he is one of the primary movers and shakers on Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley is an absolute pleasure for me. The writing on that show is so top-notch. Every season, I fall more in love with the way the characters talk to each other and how they just have so much adversity. Like, just an unbelievable mountain of terrible things keeps happening to them. So Alex Berg has been working on that show for, I want to say, 5 seasons. Last year he did Silicon Valley and Barry, and he felt overwhelmed. So this year, he said, yeah, we're just not going to do Silicon Valley this year. because I'm more engaged with Barry. He just dumped his other super profitable show. He didn't cancel it. He just said, yeah, we'll get back to it one day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One guy who's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to put all these people out of work for a while, and I'm just going to focus on my other show I care about. So yeah, Alec Berg is, I mean, honestly, if you got to pick one, hats off. You picked the right one.
Mm-hmm.
I love both a lot, but Barry is...
Well, I've also been a big Bill Hader fan since his days on Saturday Night Live, because he was one of the few cast members who really seemed obsessed with a lot of the same things I was obsessed with, to the point where they let him do sketches that still amaze me ever aired.
Well, you were the one who pointed out, and it was even before I'd seen it, because there was a long writer's strike, and then a few months, and then the first episode they came back, Bill Hader did an impression of Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you said this to me, you said, oh man, you know that movie came out at just the wrong time during the writer's strike, and he was just sitting at home going, no, I have the best sketch for this. I know exactly how to parody this character. And yeah,
I just want to do that character, want to do that voice.
The first episode they came back, he did that bit, and it is one of the all-time great bits. It's the milkshake bit, but taken to a really great extreme. It's a literal travel show where that character goes from town to town stealing people's milkshakes out of their hands, which is genius. He just takes the crazy metaphor that's used in the film, and it just does it physically.
And of course, the punchline to the sketch is, "I'm finished." Yeah.
Just to mention Bill Hader in general, he's about to appear in a very big budget, very big movie. He is going to play one of the leads, the grown-up versions of the kids from It in the sequel.
Ah, yes, right.
I'm not.
Is he the Harry Anderson character?
I couldn't tell you.
I don't know.
But
okay.
I do think he is playing the kid from Stranger Things, grown up. There's an actor from Stranger Things.
Oh, okay. All right. But the thing that really made me fall in love with Bill Hader on Saturday Night Live was the sketches they did in black and white where he played Vincent Price in a fictional talk show from the 1960s, early 60s, talking to various Hollywood celebrities, and all of them being complete arseholes. Mm-hmm. And him, as Vincent Price, just having to deal with them.
Right.
And you can tell that affection for old Hollywood stuff just flows through his veins. And... the more I saw that, the more you saw sketches, you realize, oh yeah, he had either a hand in writing this or he wrote it himself. They all have that flavor to them.
Well, the thing that first really won me over with Bill Hader was a bit of voice work he did. He plays the lead in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which was something I instantly dismissed when I heard about. Maybe I saw a trailer. I try to avoid trailers. But as soon as I heard the concept for that, I was like, that sounds like an inane children's film. Then at some point it crossed my path and I actually watched it. At the time, I didn't know who Phil Lord and Christopher Miller were. And they wrote and directed this movie.
Oh, those are the guys who got fired.
Justifiably so. So I had never heard of them, never seen any of their work. And I watched Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And from the first 30 seconds of that movie, I knew I was watching something deliberate and special. And Bill Hader is narrating at the beginning, and there's something so compelling about his character in that piece. Sort of a deranged, genius, childlike figure. But that was where I went, oh, that guy from Saturday Night Live is really special in this. And it just grew from there, and ever since then I've just been more and more interested in seeing where he goes. I will say I cannot recommend Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs any more highly as an animated film. The only thing that comes close is the recent Lord and Miller Spider-Verse movie, which of course we talked about at length on this show and we all really loved. However, I will say this. Watch Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and pretend there's no sequel. Because I have almost never seen something so unnecessary, and that happens a lot in the sequel
They
business.
They didn't have anything to do with the sequel, did they?
They had something.
Oh,
to
did
do
they?
with it.
Did they?
They were involved in something to do with it. I can't tell you if they
cashing a check.
Well, their names are on a lot of stuff as I mean, their names are on it as writers. But
okay.
When you see it, it picks up. The movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs has a perfect arc and a perfect ending. It's perfect. It's done. The second movie starts 5 seconds after the first one ends and says, but what about all these new problems we have? Which is a hateful way to tell a story. It's pretty much the Alien 3 of cartoon movies. And it just goes against the grain of every character choice that's made in the first movie and tells a completely worthless news story that you just, the whole time you're saying, but the first movie was whimsical. What are you doing?
Well, thank God The Incredibles 2 didn't go down that path.
Oh, thank goodness. Brad Bird hasn't shot his wad. Anyway, we're talking about Bill Hader and we're talking about Barry.
But also, on the other side of the coin for Barry is another actor I love, which is Stephen Root, who's one of those character actors who's been around for a million years, cropped up in a million things.
Started out late, though.
Yeah.
He was not a young man when he got his start on news radio.
No, well, okay, but he was around before. Probably his most iconic role before that was it Melvin, the character's name? The guy obsessed with his stapler in Office Space.
Way after.
That's way after?
Way after.
Oh, okay. All right. Nice.
Although as I'm going to glance through his credits here, he's in Crocodile Dundee 2, playing a DEA agent.
Well, we all remember Crocodile Dundee 2.
His first credit.
The ultimate of all Crocodile Dundee movies.
He's also in the Stephen King miniseries Golden Years, which was a TV miniseries of an original story by Stephen King. We all remember Golden Years.
Of course.
Just give me a moment as I go through and see when was news radio on. Hang on.
Well, I'll wait. But he's...
It's 95. News radio was 95 to 99. Office Space is 99.
Oh,
so it's the final year of news radio when he played that character. Meanwhile, he had been acting for about 7 years, but nothing where he resonated and became known. It was news radio where he played an over-the-top billionaire owner.
Yeah, see, that's a less typical role for him because he really does excel at playing scumbags.
Oh, I'm guessing you've never seen news radio.
I've seen a couple episodes.
It is worth going back and watching any episode that focuses on his character.
Yeah, see, I've seen no episodes that focused on him.
Because he is one of those characters who is on another plane from the people he's talking to. So while they're going on about reality, he's so wealthy, none of this matters to him. Everyone is an ant. And the way he speaks to them is very interesting. But he has a good time hanging out with their characters.
With the little people?
The lowly peon people. There's also a villain millionaire who he's at odds with on certain episodes. Like, they're always vying to buy the same properties and things. So that's a lot of fun. And Root is amazing in it. He just is so blasé and comfortable playing these characters. Anyway, after Office Space, I know he's in a few Coen Brothers movies.
Oh,
He's in Oh Brother.
He's one of those guys who I just saw over and over again until I realized, hey, I really like him. What is his name again? And then... Right. Then start to commit it to memory and actually look out for him and stuff.
Yeah, he's in, I think, at least 2 Coen Brothers movies, always in smaller parts.
Yeah, it's usually supporting roles.
He's the radio station guy in Oh Brother who records their song.
Okay.
And is strangely charming. Oh, he's also in No Country for Old Men, which I did not remember at all. At any rate...
And also some of our recent favorites, like Sweetwater.
Oh, wow, yeah, I don't remember him in that. But
I've
seen that movie exactly once. It was transcendent as an experience. Have we still not done our Weird Western episode?
We have not, but it'll arrive one day.
Coming soon, Weird Westerns, because we have a back pocket full of them at this point to talk about. But Sweetwater is really high up there.
But I also want to give a shout out to his appearance in the first season of Fargo, where he is kind of the focus of a scene that really made that entire season for me and made me a devotee to the series.
Speaking of TV that's better than film, Fargo.
Well, I am a fan of the original film, but
I mean,
which you're not. But
the TV show Fargo is so
but compared to everything,
everything that's on the air, everything is in theaters right now.
Right.
Let's get back to him. Okay, so Stephen Root on the TV show Barry plays essentially Barry's handler. His manager, the money man, the one who gets the contracts for him.
The closest he has to family, even though he's a real dirtbag.
But as of episode 1, Barry is just trying to get away from this guy. Immediately. I rewatched the first 4 episodes of Barry since yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And he is just trying as hard as he can to, in any way possible, just get this man, who they call Fuchs, out of his life. There's a point where they have an incident they don't fulfill a contract properly, and Barry runs into the room where Fuchs is, and he goes, "Okay, that was really bad. They're definitely going to be looking for us now. This high-powered what nationality are these?
Oh, what, the Chechens?
Yeah, the Chechens. They're definitely going to try to kill us." And then he says to Fuchs, "You know, if you just leave town, they said it'll be okay." And he goes, "They did?" And he goes, "No, I don't know why I just said that. It's just anything to get Fuchs to go away." He just wants him gone. But he literally just makes up a lie and then cops to it in 2 seconds. "Yeah, sorry, I don't know, I just want you to go." But that relationship gets stronger and stronger. I mean, for me as an audience member, it is so compelling that
the way they come to odds with each other, and yet the closeness of their relationship is...
Fuchs is a master manipulator. Never seen... I mean, he's an imbecile.
He's a bit of an idiot, yeah.
But it's never more apparent than when the Chechens, is that it? They're Chechens?
Yeah.
They bring in the old-time assassin to do the big job. And it turns out he's elderly. He's this broken-down old man. And they put him in a room with Fuchs. And Fuchs just starts to talk to him about how sad his life is. And the guy kills himself. Fuchs talks him into suicide. It is an extraordinary 10-minute scene.
Yes and no. I think Fuchs... Well, Fuchs plays that scene like, I'm such a Hannibal Lecter mastermind. I talked a guy into killing himself. Idiot, meanwhile, the guy who barely understands any language because he's so old, he just muttering about his life and how depressed he is. He's depressed to a degree that makes Barry look happy.
Right.
By comparison. So his suicide is sort of almost a preordained thing in that scene, but Fuchs is perfectly willing to take credit for it.
Yeah, his name is something like Stovka, and they're cheering when they hear he's going to be coming to town. "You got Stovka!" And then they put him in a room with Fuchs just because they're holding Fuchs at this point, trying to blackmail Barry into doing one more hit. And this elderly man comes in and sits in a chair, and at one point Fuchs is talking to him about his life, and the guy is just unbelievably depressed because everyone he's ever loved is dead. And Fuchs says, "Well, you're holding up pretty good for how old are you?"
Right.
The guy says, "I am 45, and he looks 1,000. And Fuchs just can't help but start laughing uncomfortably, like, we're all gonna die. This is the worst possible outcome.
And the thing about the show is... Yeah, it's kind of, you don't know who's going to die and when, because it will do surprising things. It's not quite the massacre that Game of Thrones is, but it's not shy about having some very unexpected deaths.
Look, here's the thing. You said it is the weird bastard child of Breaking Bad meets Dexter with comedy, and those shows had the same element of... I really am becoming fond of these characters. Are they safe?
Yes.
Are these characters safe? And on Barry, they have gotten me so many times now. But they've also gotten me with fake outs.
Yeah, they'll walk up to the point of, well, I guess that character's done.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, maybe not. So it's hard to tell exactly what rules it's playing by. Yeah, so and it keeps you guessing.
We were talking about Stephen Root playing Fuchs. There's also there's so many people to talk about on this show. I mean,
but we have to talk about the third wheel of the show. Henry Winkler.
Okay, yeah, that was my next. So Henry Winkler plays a character named Gene Cousineau, who is the acting coach on this show, who has clearly no talent.
But had a career. Certainly had a career.
I want to remind our listeners. You are listening to CJLS 1690. Our show is called Cinema Smackdown. Today we're debating the merits of a little TV show that we love called Barry.
So, Henry Winkler's character has cast himself as an acting guru, much like I know from my own experiences, there are all the screenwriting gurus that are out there, the Sid Fields of the world, who if you look up their credits, you will be underwhelmed by their credits. And yet everyone turns to them and says, "Oh, hey, author of Save the Cat, tell me how to write a movie. Wait, didn't you write Stop or My Mom Will Shoot? Why am I listening to you?"
Exactly. So he is exactly that character. He is a completely washed up, never been, not a has been, a never been. And yet, Here's the thing that got me when I was watching this show, and it was a make or break thing for me. It almost pushed me out. His acting class is all about getting his students to perform scenes from movies. To the degree that it's just trashy attempts to recreate Oscar-winning scenes or memorable moments. He's not teaching them acting. He's teaching them copycat movie crap. And it's never more apparent than when he tells Bill Hader's character, Barry, I want you to do a Mamet monologue for me. Because, of course, David Mamet is famous for writing these complex plays. And one of his most complex plays is Glengarry Glen Ross. It's a beautiful piece of writing. It's word perfect. It's very much an actor's piece. But what does he have him do? He has him do the made-up monologue they added to the opening so Alec Baldwin would have something to say in the movie. It's just the crappy Alec Baldwin speech. So it has a zero understanding of why Mamet matters.
And yet, it's the thing that everyone remembers.
Yes, but it is the garbage thing. It's the oh, well, we threw this in because we didn't want to bore a movie audience. It's just so funny to me. You have any number of just fantastic examples of character work from Glengarry. Nope, we abandoned that for the schlocky steak knife comment.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
Well, yeah, you're more enthralled with Mamet than I am.
Nah,
I know.
that's a whole show into itself.
Yeah, I will get into the sort of people who like Mamet in a pretentious way to the point where they call him Mamet. I have heard that.
I bet he would love that. I bet he would just love that. No, I don't. I don't. I like a lot of Mamet. I don't idolize him, and I think a lot of what he writes is just pretentious garbage. So, just so that's on the record.
All right, good.
Let's go with the majority of pretentious garbage, and then there's these gems that come through. At any rate, we were talking about Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler's career is so interesting and weird because he was an absolute nobody for a little while. Then he became the Fonz, which was the biggest character in the world for, 6 to 10 years. If
you weren't around for the 70s, he was massive on a scale that you can't even imagine for a TV star now.
It was nonstop everywhere you went. He was the cultural touchstone. If you turned on your television or your radio and it glitched at all, people would hit it gently, like the Fonz. And everyone got that reference. It was everywhere all the time. There was a certain cachet that he somehow just clicked into, and he became the cultural icon forever.
Yeah.
He's still talked about to this day by people who've never even seen the show. They've heard enough references.
Yeah, so a short little Jewish guy became the coolest Italian greaser of all time.
It really just is a very interesting period, and that mixed with Saturday Night Fever, mixed with a few other things, just sort of, they're kind of this perfect zeitgeist of cool guy in a leather jacket. There's just something happening there. At any rate, so Winkler had that, and then his career went really quiet for a while.
Well,
he became a director.
Well, he did literally jump the shark, because he helped add that to the lexicon.
Very true. But he became a director of some minor work. He did a lot of television production, but other than cameos, he's never had a major role again. And he came into Barry playing this perfect little weaselly character that starts off as a almost one-dimensional, desperate, greedy loser. But by episode 3, they introduce a romantic interest for him. And everything changes for me. I become so enamored with him and his attempt to win over a police officer.
Yeah, who's really initially wants no part of it whatsoever. She's investigating a crime. She's being a professional, and he's being this smarmy, kind of just pickup artist, sleazy actor guy who's just trying to get in her pants. And then you start to see it work, and you start to see the charm of the guy.
Yeah, she is so good in this show as well. Let me see if I can find her name.
Yeah, she is certainly a compelling character. We've certainly seen the tough as nails, middle-aged female police detective before, and it can be an annoying cliche, but she, in particular, I found really compelling.
Mm-hmm. One sec.
No,
go on.
So I was going to say, though, so the combination of Bill Hader, Stephen Root, and Henry Winkler put me weirdly in mind. I don't think the stars have lined up for me like that, where I've been that excited about a cast since, and this will be a bizarre example, since Blue Thunder in the early 80s, when...
You're not wrong about that being a bizarre example.
Because two of my favorite actors are Roy Scheider and Malcolm McDowell, and they're both in that, playing off of each other, and then they throw in Warren Oates just for the hell of it.
Right.
And and it becomes magic for me. So Barry does that, except this time it's Bill Hader, Stephen Root, and Henry Winkler.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, she was, for me, the character she plays is Detective Janice Moss. The actress's name is Paula Newsome. She is this sort of no-nonsense cop until he starts winning her over somehow. And you see it happening. It's very organic. It's very believable. And she just starts to have a soft spot for this little wussy loser character. I don't know what it is.
This elderly, pot-bellied...
It's true. He's also too old for her.
Yeah, he is quite a bit. Well, Henry Winkler is now in his early 70s.
Yeah. And I have no idea how old she is. But there's just this weird, likable romance between them. And, I really fell for that. It just pulled me forward in that series. I mean, there's so much to say about how well they've written these characters on Barry. Despite, again, it being kind of goofy, there's better character.
Yeah, kind of goofy, but I mean, you keep saying goofy, and yet there are moments of violence that you would never, ever have seen on television, let's say pre-Sopranos.
Right. Yeah, violence and compelling character work.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to the last main... There's two more main characters on the show. One is Sally.
Yes.
Sally is Bill Hader's acting partner on the show. He meets her.
And kinda girlfriend.
And she is... having rewatched the first 4 episodes last night, she is one of the most horrible people.
Yes, I wanted to bring that up with you, because she's the female lead. You're kind of supposed to be in her corner. You're kind of supposed to like her, and yet she is so monstrously self-centered.
She's so endlessly selfish.
Yeah.
Endlessly comparing herself to other people's accomplishments and crying at how much better they're doing than her. Anytime she has a tiny bit of success, she lords it over people. She's, as you said, completely self-centered. It is unreal. That is one of the greatest parts I've ever seen for somebody. That actress gets to do just incredibly awful things all the time, and yet still be kind of likable.
Yeah.
It's a dream part to play somebody who is that extreme, I guess you'd say. And she and Barry have this reluctant romance, and I didn't remember it, but there is that first spark moment where he helps her out with something and drives her home, and they're standing on her front lawn, and she starts to give him the speech about, we probably shouldn't sleep together. And she's got this whole monologue prepared, and he cuts her off in the middle. It's just like, yeah, I had no intention of doing that. And she's just so thrown by this that she starts trying to invite him in because he's blown her whole...
Right.
This, and he still just walks away, and he's not even paying attention to her at this point. And she's so ready, and makes it very clear in this monologue that she's slept with everyone. And that she says, it's a terrible idea. And
extremely broken, damaged character.
She says, it's a terrible idea, and I know I've done it millions of times.
Uh-huh.
And while it may not be millions, you really get that impression of, oh dear God, it's everyone you've ever met.
Yeah, it's a compelling mix of being charmed by her and hating her.
I never hate her. I just can't.
There are moments when
you wait to see what the next awful thing. And when we do get into her backstory, it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
it is. It is that super tragic, broken backstory. But what's great about it is it's not black and white. It's not just awful. It's nuanced.
Yeah.
And they play with that throughout season 2. There is so much of how much of her backstory is she being honest about. And then you meet the people in her life, and you're like, oh, some of the really bad parts were true. But how did she really react to them? Because she says one thing and does another. And everything right up until the climax of season 2 is so satisfying.
Well, the the overarching theme of the entire show is the truth and the lies that
Yeah.
we tell each other. Because the acting, how much of it is truthful, or Henry Winkler trying to push them to get to the real truth, their personal truth, even as they're doing some very hackneyed bits on stage. And then, of course, Barry is constantly lying because, he's trying to be this actor, trying to have something in his life that isn't about killing people, but, he's constantly covering up his crimes.
Well, Sally's a really interesting counterpoint to the Dexter character of Rita,
Yeah.
who's played by Julie Benz. It's the girlfriend who doesn't know that at night you're doing terrible things.
And should mention that Julie Benz spent way too much time hanging out with serial killers because she had a period of her career where she just wasn't Dexter's girlfriend. She was also hanging out with the Punisher in a movie. She was also hanging out with John Rambo in a movie.
Yep.
She just couldn't away from those killer men.
Well, she also has like a 5 or 6 season arc on Buffy and Angel where she plays a murderous character herself. So she's definitely...
Oh, and then she also ended up playing opposite the Boondock Saints. So, in the Boondocks too.
Oh, I don't remember her.
Yeah,
but then again, I don't remember a lot about Boondocks.
So, anything featuring guys who murder lots and lots and lots of people, Julie Benz,
It's true.
she's right there.
She is hooked up with Angel during his Angelus period in all the Buffy Angel stuff, so you do get to see her kind of hanging on to those murderers. What is it about her face that says to casting directors, murderer groupie? At any rate, yeah, so the Sally character on Barry has a lot in common.
Are you sure she doesn't play a Manson girl in the new Tarantino film?
She has a lot in common with the Rita character from Dexter, in the best ways and the worst ways, but the Sally character is so much worse a person. Rita's always a nice person.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just give Sally so much to do.
Well, kind of everyone on the show is a little bit awful.
Yeah.
There's no character that... Barry is the closest to being a nice guy, and he's the biggest mass murderer.
Yeah, he's the most broken, and yet he holds it together better than most people. The real final character to talk about is the gentleman, the hairless man, who plays a character named No-Ho Hank. The actor's name is Anthony Carrigan. He's actually had a very large part on the TV show Gotham, where he played Victor Zsasz, the assassin who every time he kills someone cuts a little scar into his arm or his chest, so he's covered in these tiny little lines.
Now, I'm not really familiar with him outside of Barry, but does he really have alopecia?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I mean...
Because it's one of those...
You're pretty method if you're shaving your eyelashes off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well... it's the lack of eyebrows that always is the tip off that you're not willingly bald.
That gentleman has a lot of charm, though, as a character actor, and we'll be back to talk about more Barry in a moment. That's alright. Jesus, we could probably do 3 hours of Barry, honestly. I mean, we're just talking character actors. We haven't even talked plot. Really
yeah, well, I don't want to spoil too much for people who haven't
but
seen it.
I think we're doing fine. And you can get into stuff a little bit. You gotta give people a reason, right? It's like I watch movie trailers, and you watch them, and you're like, you showed me so much of the movie without actually showing me a sequence that's remotely compelling.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had so much spoiled without a sense of, I would actually like to watch that scene, because you didn't bother to try to set something up well enough. Like the Throw Mama from the Train sequence, the trailer for that is just a scene. It's a minute and a half
Right, I
scene,
remember.
and it's so compelling, it made me want to watch the movie.
Yeah.
But trailers don't generally do that. So when we talk about stuff, I'd like to actually say something of value about it. I mean, we're just basically saying it's great, which is fine.
Well, all you have to do is show me Danny DeVito hitting Billy Crystal in the head with a frying pan saying, "You lied to me!"
But that scene is great. And we're back on CJLO 6090. Our show is Cinema Smackdown. We're devoting an entire hour to the greatest cinematic achievement of our times, a television show called Barry. I really do love this show, though. I have no problem whatsoever just devoting some time to good old Barry. Very worth it. It's funny how hard a sell this show was for me. Not that I wouldn't have tried it, but...
Well, I was really worried Bill Hader would end up doing, movies like Trainwreck Forever. And to do this, which is such a mix of deadpan comedy, serious drama, horrific acts of violence on occasion, and as we've seen in this recent season, occasionally a really amazing action scene.
Yes. Well, go back to season 1, episode 1. The first episode, Bill Hader is asked to kill someone, and he starts to have a sort of a, I don't know if I should really do that. But then when he finally commits to go do it, something has already happened, and he's forced into a firefight. The first episode ends on a firefight.
Yeah. It's very brief, but it gives you that taste of, wow, this is sort of like Bill Hader being an action star.
Yeah.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, and if you read a little bit about the behind the scenes, Hader is completely afraid of guns, is really uncomfortable with them, and he had to take a whole training.
Well, he certainly learned well, because we get to the point where you kind of wonder, how good is he?
Mm-hmm.
Is he, because, he has his moments of difficulty, people get the upper hand on him occasionally, but he appears to be really skilled at this, because he's an ex-Marine, he's killed people, he's a superb sniper. But as far as, like, close quarters combat, we get a taste of it here and there, and then there's that amazing mid-season 2 fight that goes on and on and on. And then it's not quite done, because later we get a scene in the series that approaches John Wick levels.
Yes.
Of oh, you're this good.
Yeah, well, not only that, but even in that sequence, Barry is in a trance. He's just not in his own mind during that whole piece, and it's
he is rage killing.
He's
in
rage
that
killing,
scene.
and as it's overused in comic books, it's a berserker rage. It is absolute fury that is driving him. I have
and a complete disregard for personal safety
or friendships.
or friendships, yes.
But we were talking before the break about the actor who plays NoHo Hank, and that guy, he turns on a dime so often in, I'm your best friend, I'm about to kill you. He's so quick to go back and forth on that with everyone. He is so ready to betray people at the drop of a hat, and a hilariously well-designed character.
Yeah. He's, of all the characters on the show, I'm least worried about him, because he is so quirky and compelling. I feel like the people behind the show is like, well, we can't ever get rid of him.
He's also been in enough sequences where you're going to die right this second.
Right
this second.
Yeah.
And he weasels his way out of it somehow, again and again and again. But he has the best little one-liners about pain and violence, just little goofy comments.
He also plays a very foreign character who seems absolutely delighted to be in America.
Yeah.
And just wants to swathe himself in American culture.
They threatened to send him back at one point, and he just tries to find any way not to go back to the home country. Where, even so far as to take over the business, so he can't have his
he will start outright gang wars.
Yeah.
For fairly shallow, selfish reasons.
Yeah, he's just a phenomenal little character on this show. So, I don't know, what can we say about the series as a whole? It is about it is about a hitman who just wants to quit and be an actor. And it's interesting because Barry's commitment to being an actor is so, I guess I'll enjoy this? ? He has no goal.
Yeah, he's a bit clueless in his approach. The idea is that things that are going on in his real life occasionally draw inadvertently good performances out of him.
Yes, and they keep reusing that concept. He is like a monotone delivery in some cases, but whenever something truly tragic or horrifying is happening in his life, he's incapable of filtering that when he does an acting performance, so suddenly he's amazing in his scene.
He's sort of stumbling into success.
Yeah, and people are noticing it and giving him little parts now. It's a very funny... the funniest thing, of course, is anytime Barry has any success whatsoever as an actor, Sally becomes enraged with jealousy and does zero attempt at hiding that.
Yeah.
And so the same with his acting teacher. His acting teacher, Mr. Cousineau, just immediately wants to ride Barry's coattails to a role of his own. Like, how can I get in on this? How can I use Barry in order to get my own success?
It does have this real feeling of authenticity. I'm sure a lot of this comes from Hader, who has seen this in acting circles, this sort of truly self-serving, narcissistic, struggling actors who all want to be someone, all want to get somewhere, and don't necessarily have the fuel or the talent to do it.
For anybody who's...
It feels authentic at times, even though it's comedy.
for anybody who's fueled, this is on an acting note, for anybody who's fueled by our conversation to actually go and try the pilot of Barry, the first episode, there is a moment in the show where they go to a bar, and this bar is a real bar in Los Angeles. It's called Residuals. And the joke about this bar is residuals are something actors get all the time. If you've been on a TV show and a year goes by and they've rerun your episode, if you're an extra, if you have a small amount of work in it, they have to pay you. But sometimes the amount of money they pay you can be pennies,
yes.
Literal pennies. So the studios are sending out these checks all the time that cost more than the amount that they're offering.
Yeah, the postage will run you way more than what's actually on a check.
Or the price of cashing the check is more than the value
Frankly,
of the
in
check.
some cases, the price of the envelope
Exactly.
is more than a check.
So Residuals has a policy as a bar, if you bring in a residual check for under $1, they exchange it for a drink.
Yeah.
That's not mentioned in the episode, but it is.
But we do see a shot of some of these checks stapled to a bulletin board or something, and like one of them is for 3 cent, a 2 cent.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a great little piece.
I will say on the writer front, I myself have received one of those. So.
Oh, have you?
Yes, I once got a residual check for 8 cents.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's worth being part of the industry just to partake of that joyous tradition. I salute you, Hollywood. Good job. So another thing to mention about Barry is that it has won a number of awards, very justly so. It won the Emmy last year for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor. So that's Bill Hader and Henry Winkler won the two biggest honors you can essentially win, and it's well deserved. They were by far the two people I thought were the most compelling on television that year. It was also nominated in every category, which is to say writing, directing, best show, best this, outstanding that. It didn't win those awards, but it was certainly, if not the very best of those, it was in the running with whatever did win that year. No question at all. I'm just really happy people are noticing this show. The first year I saw it, I didn't know if it was going to get noticed and get renewed. That's always the danger with these things.
Yeah, if the first season does end in such a way that if there had been no more, that would have been a complete story.
Yes.
However, as of the end of season 2, there's a cliffhanger.
I would argue, here's the thing, I saw the end of Barry season 1 and I said, not only is this perfect, it ends on kind of a minorly whimsical note that made me think that really does feel final.
Upsettingly whimsical.
Yes, but it does end on a whimsical note that made me just feel like, they're done. Okay, we're good. And then I heard they got renewed, and I said, well, all right, well, I'll go into season 2 with an open mind. I was 35 seconds into season 2, episode 1, and my basic thinking was, they can make 1,000 episodes of this. I will never stop watching it. They got me immediately. That opening, there's a slow burn, one take camera shot for the opening of season 2 of someone walking up to a door, and I haven't been as compelled by an image in any movie I've seen this year. I'm saying in the last 365 days, than I have by that one camera shot of someone standing at the entrance to a door waiting for someone to answer. That scene, it got me. The thinking behind it got me. The execution got me. And I've no pun intended.
Yeah. There is certainly execution material.
And once they get into that season's new problems to resolve, I've never been more won over. Apparently, Bill Hader didn't have an idea for season 2 when he was working on season 1 until he was on his way to the award show where he was going to win this Emmy. And in the car on the way, he went, "Oh, I just figured out season 2."
Well, at this point, it's really it really does feel like the good era of Dexter, when it's a character who has committed many murders. And it's juggling constantly, just trying to hold on by his fingernails and not be discovered.
Yeah. Well, the Dexter one was at its best when somebody was on to him or had just figured it out, and you as an audience member had to figure out, what are they going to do with this information? And there's a lot of that on Barry. There's always a threat of exposure. This season, there were so many threats of exposure in different moments. Barry himself steps into moments with a gun in his hand where you're like, if someone turns around right now, you will never be able to explain your way out of this. And those scenes they're masterfully done. Bill Hader took over. Well, he didn't take over. He established himself this season as a director. He directed every key episode I cared about. He directed the season 2 episode 5 fight scene episode. He directed the pilot. I'm sure he directed every premiere and every last episode.
Now, we've talked about long take fight scenes before,
Yes.
especially in the kung fu variety. And I just have to mention, now, part of the fight in this episode, this season 2 episode that we keep referencing, there's a lot of knockdown, drag out type of desperation, break into furniture type stuff. There is one particular shot of that fight that goes on quite a long time, and how it is staged, to me, I couldn't help even watching it for the first time going, wow, that was magical. Because even as they fight, they hit things, they fight some more, they cross one way, they come back, and the thing they hit earlier, before the camera movement, also has a chance to fall down or collapse. And there's certain things as like, you have to plan for that shelf to give away at that moment in this shot, without anyone touching it, because it got hit 30 seconds earlier.
Yeah, there's more cinematic magic on this show than most films I've seen this year. You know, there are movies that are very deliberate and very careful, very cleverly designed, and every year we get a handful of those, but Barry, we're getting it every week in a half-hour format. There's something that they're just saying, we need to go the extra mile here, that we really can show an audience it's worth watching this. Barry's become that show, ridiculous as it is, that I am fearful of spoilers. I must watch it immediately to avoid anybody saying anything. And what am I worried about? I'm worried I might find out someone broke up with his girlfriend, or another character has flubbed an acting scene, and yet I'm so motivated to stick with it. Well, I'm afraid that's the end of our show today. We've been discussing Barry on Cinema Smackdown. Barry, the cinematic paragon. But once in a while, that's what ends up happening. You find something that has more merit to talk about in the same vein.
It's my new favorite show on TV.
There we go. Yeah, it's currently my favorite show on TV, even though season 2 just ended. I've been Michael Brody. I've been joined by Shane Simmons. Our show has been about Barry. We both give it a massive thumbs up. Thanks for listening.
The mistitled name of the show is Cinema Smackdown.
We'll see you next time. I could have done 40 more minutes on that.
Probably.
It just... My unending enthusiasm for it. We also hit it at the right moment where you watched it reasonably close to me. I just watched it. I think our show should... we could change the name of our show to Shane Finally Watches the Thing Michael Suggested. Then we can always have a topic that'll work. I guess there's no follow-up show.
Oh, yeah.
Alright. Everything is where it needs to be. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied.